You are about to hear The 5 Negro Presidents According to What White People Said They Were by J.A. Rogers. Narrated by Joseph Kent. In 1963, when Attorney General Kennedy and Senator Javits said there might be a Negro president in the next 30 or 40 years, Fact, most outspoken of the big magazines, replied that there was already one, and in its January-February 1964 issue, had an article, America's First Negro President. It named Warren G. Harding as the one and had affidavits from elderly whites who knew the Harding family. But before Harding, 3 other presidents had been loudly proclaimed by white people as being of Negro ancestry: Thomas Jefferson, Andrew Jackson, and Abraham Lincoln. The portraits of none of the above-mentioned show the slightest degree of Negro strain, but that is certainly not proof. Even before the Revolution, many of the Negro ancestry had become so white that whites who had been kidnapped and sold as Negroes could not prove they were really white, the more so that some of them were darker than the bleached Negroes. Children were especial victims. As late as 1858, white orphan asylums sold their children at public auctions, and a picture of the Times shows a white child that had been tanned to sell him into slavery in the South. Harper's Weekly, January 30, 1864, has pictures of emancipated white slaves. The most famous case of the Times was that of Salome Mueller, a white German girl who was sold as a Negro slave. Her relatives brought suit, but the Supreme Court of Louisiana held she was a Negro. It wasn't until her birth certificate was dug up in Germany that her real race was discovered. In fact, Salome, who had been married to a Negro, believed herself to be one also. What writers of the time said of this is given in my Sex and Race Volume 2 in the chapter White People Sold as Negro Slaves. Even some aristocrats were of Negro ancestry. George Washington tells of Colonel Catesby Coke, Virginia senator, whose Negroid features made him hurry away nervously from Washington's home when he saw there was an old Negro to whom he bore a striking resemblance. Therefore, when the political opponents of a presidential candidate said he was a Negro, many accepted it without question. It is usual for white writers to condemn offhand the statement that any president could possibly have any degree of Negro strain whatsoever. But it is not possible without minute tracing of ancestry to find whether one is pure white. Here is the case of one who started as a Negro, became white, and then voluntarily became a Negro again. He is T. John McKee, whose case attracted national attention and whose picture appeared on the front page of the New York Daily News, February 20, 1948. McKee, grandson of a Negro millionaire of that name.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?